Hi, this is Natalie Lander, voice of Kinsey, Tara Branford, Stargirl, and many others. You are listening to a W2Mnet podcast. You can visit W2Mnet.com for other podcasts about entertainment, video games, sports, and wrestling. You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the best games of the decade. We're now into 2014, and if you thought 2013 was going to be a head scratcher, oh my god, 2014. Yeah, that one looks like this is going to be fun for us to go through. So, just in case you, for some reason, once again, you like 2014 better than any of the other years that we've already done. We'll explain the process in just a second of how we got to what we're doing here today. So, I'm your host of Video Games to the Max, Sean Garmer, and here with me, my usual co-host, Mr. Marc Morrison.
Howdy.
And here with us, that they've been on the rest of the journey, Dietrich.
Salutations.
And Randy Isbelle.
This one's going to make my head hurt.
Yep, I can already feel the pain coming that we're going to have to go through here. So, the way we did this was we have all four of us, along with two other staffers that have yet to make an appearance on the actual podcast, did a vote. And we took those from number 1 being 10 points to number 10 being 1 point. We put that all together and we made a top 15 for each year. As you can go back and listen to, we've already done, podcasts for 2010 through 2013. So you'll figure out what we did there. But we take this top 15 and some games that just missed out because sometimes there's ties or whatnot. And we then make a top 10 for that year, which eventually will help us understand and get a better idea of what games were important for that year when we go and make our top 100 of the entire decade. So, and yes, we know that everybody else is pretty much doing it, but hey, why not partake in the fun ourselves as well? So, yeah, let's get started and look at this number of games that we gotta try to figure out and put into a top 10. So, number 1 right now, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, which was many people's game of the year for that year, 2014. Far Cry 4 as the number 2. Tied with it is Dark Souls 2 and Mario Kart 8. Then you get South Park: Stick of Truth at 5. Wolf Among Us at 6. Shovel Knight 7. Bayonetta 2 at 8. Wolfenstein: The New Order is at 9. Super Mario Bros. Wii U at 10. This is the new Super Mario Bros., right? And
no,
then,
that's a different one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love those naming conventions.
Whatever. Sunset Overdrive is at 11. Alien Isolation is also tied with it at 11. Divinity: Original Sin at 13. Dragon Age Inquisition at 14. Destiny, the first Destiny, at 15th. And just missing out, Infamous Second Son, Bravely Default, and Dragon Guard 3 are tied for 17th, and I think everybody just forgot that there was a Smash Bros. On Wii U, that it was pretty good, and I figured we should probably at least mention it, because a lot of the big characters that we were so hyped to be in Ultimate showed up in that game. So, yeah, nobody thought about Ryu or Cloud or Bayonetta being in Smash, and they showed up in Wii U, the Wii U one. So,
Hey, it made my list. I'm happy with it.
So, here we go. Number 1 for me, Sunset Overdrive needs to be in the top 10.
So, one argument that I might make against it is, to me, the combat didn't quite click. I mean,
the combat was fun.
So there are times when it did click, but the whole having to basically stay mobile all the time and grinding rails while in a
circle.
shooting scenario. There are times, maybe it's just that my brain is not quite wired for it, but there are definitely times when it was frustrating. But I also was not a huge fan of the writing. Like, I thought the jokes were actively not good, a lot of them.
It was
but
supposed to be corny, I feel like.
it is extremely corny, bordering on cringy at times to me. What I did really love was the character creator. And I loved how much flexibility it gave you in that. And I love the art style.
You could also argue that what Insomniac did with Sunset Overdrive also led them to be able to do
Spidey. Yeah.
And then eventually get bought by Sony. So
I do like it as a return, because I also played Fuse, and I thought that Fuse was going to kill that studio. So it was a happy return to form, in a way. I just don't know if it's quite top. I would not, I don't know if it's top 10, but I can understand why people love it.
Is there going to be an argument? I think there's also two other games that definitely we need to at least make an argument about. I feel like Alien Isolation is perhaps one of the best survival horror games that is in existence.
Yes.
Like
Might be the best.
Like, just the recreation of the Nostromo alone. Or not the Nostromo, but it looks like the Nostromo. They did a great job of matching the style of everything.
It has been a long time since I've been actively scared playing a game, and that game, when the alien frickin' shows up just out of nowhere sometimes, it's like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah,
it's like piss your pants worthy sometimes, the way that you could be going around the corner and
I could not imagine playing that game with a Kinect where any sound that you made would attract the alien. I would lose it. I don't know how many times I cussed a ton while playing that game. I would have never beat the game with a Kinect hooked up.
It's quite frustrating at times. It did feel unfair sometimes, but the unpredictability of it was also a huge asset. Mm-hmm. So even if sometimes it felt like the alien would just arbitrarily kill you, getting through one of those sections was just an immense relief.
I've thought about like going back on the Switch and getting it, but it has a Switch tax, so I don't know if it'll go on a big sale.
That's one thing about Alien Isolation is, like, after I was done with it, firstly, it's too long. Like, I feel like it goes on, like, it's like 30 hours, and it's maybe, like, at least, like, 10 of them could have been cut. I don't really like dealing with all the Android stuff. But when I was done, I said, that's one of the best survival horror games I've ever played. I don't ever want to play it again. Like, one and done with that. Like, once is enough.
I'm right there with you.
But it was a very memorable experience. I mean, I still think about it. Now and then it's just like, man, that was good.
Whoever put this Mario Brothers game down, it came out in 2012.
Oh, good. I want to cut it anyway. I mean, it's an okay Mario Brothers game. It does not hang with the rest of these.
I agree. Yeah, that Wii U Mario Brothers game does not make me think great things. But also, once we take that out, I feel like we got to make a case for Dragon Age Inquisition in some fashion, and I don't know what the hell you take off the list.
Dragon Age Inquisition was a buggy piece of crap at launch, and I actively missed out on story stuff because the cutscenes would freeze, and the only way to progress was to skip them.
Well, I didn't play it at launch, so I had a pretty good time.
It also is hugely bloated, and at times, again, if that was a 20-hour game that was focused on the core story. But that was the whole
point of that game, though, right? Like, that they made it open world and you can be there for hours and hours and hours.
The other games were like that, too.
Oh, okay.
No. I just, like, to me, that is... Dragon Age Inquisition, to me, is the beginning of the end. You can already see, like, all the things that ended up plaguing Andromeda, you can see the beginnings of them in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Nope.
Now it had great characters, and there's a lot of story beats, and like there's some of the romance stuff I really liked, but I think it is one of the weaker Dragon Age games.
Well, it's the only one I could get into. So
no, the original Dragon Age is still the best, and I think 2 is underrated. Inquisition is severely overrated.
Okay, but that's my thing, is what do we take off to even consider putting Dragon Age Inquisition on the...
I'm not considering it.
Dark Souls 2.
I put Divinity Original Sin or Sunset Overdrive on the list over Dragon Age Inquisition.
Well,
You
we
knock
just said
Dark
that
Souls 2 off, we're all set.
What?
Said you knock Dark Souls 2 off, we're all set.
No, Dark Souls 2 is not moving. I think 3 is a good spot for Dark Souls 2.
I can make a case to maybe move it down, but I don't know about off.
Okay,
That's
I mean,
my problem, is this is so
Like-
stacked.
Well, let's figure out the 10 first. And I just want to bring up one game that it's not going to make this list. It's nowhere close. But I just want to pitch the case for put it on the influential reasons to do it for that podcast when we get to it. I know there's probably a lot of hate for this game, but it created this ridiculous series that has created a ridiculous amount of merch. And I think it needs to be on our influential list for that reason. It's Five Nights at Freddy's.
oh no.
I agree
What?
with you there. I
They-
agree.
they made-
Yeah.
They made like
Hot
4 of
topic
those in 1
game.
year.
Yeah, it started in 14.
And they're all the same damn game.
I think the
They're actually,
amount...
they're a lot different.
I think the amount of unsold Five Nights at Freddy's merch out there goes to show
Yeah.
that game did not have the cultural staying power.
Like, I'm
that-
sure GameStop
no.
wishes they could
They-
get rid of all the
They
Five Nights at
released
Freddy's
2 Five Nights at Freddy's games in 2014. And then 2 more in 2015.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
that's
Stop saying they. It's one dude. I mean, he has
Yes.
hope now, but yes, there's a lot of unsold stuff
And the
because they
movie
went
that-
way over the top in getting that stuff. I have an 11-year-old, and his like I don't even let him play Five Nights at Freddy's, and that's all he talks about gaming wise is Pokemon and Five Nights at Freddy's. He knows that
That's
whole
the-
lore, upside and downside, and has never played it.
aren't those games rated R or rated M, I should say?
Probably, but like
Yes,
I said, he's never played
they're
it. But he
horror games.
But all of
yeah.
his friends at school talk about it. He knows everything about it.
Yeah, and
He's never
Stephanie
touched the
loves them
game.
as well, so and she's a lot
So
younger
again,
than we are.
I'm not saying it's a great game. I've played a few of them. They're short, enjoyable jump scare machines, and that's fine. And I love watching like the lore videos on YouTube because it's really interesting the little things that they've added to it. I'm not saying it needs to be in the top 10, but I just want to throw it out there for
It will
influence.
be.
I'm the wrong person for that because I hate jump scares. Not because they scare me, but because I think they're cheap. I hate them in horror movies, and I hate them in horror games. And this game is like, it's like nothing but the most cheap and easy manipulative kind of horror.
Yeah,
that
but the lore that he hides behind the jump scares and in all the books that he's written, and it's crazy to get into that thing. But
I've never-
again, just before we got into our top 10, I wanted to see if we get that added to the influential list because
I
again,
added it in there. We'll have to.
as far as other top 10 games, like, I don't think Infamous Second Son would make it all the way up there. I know other people like the original 2 better. Second Son was my first one in that series, so I like it a little bit more than most people. And Super Smash
we
Brothers.
didn't even
Wii
talk
U,
about
I
the
think,
second one when it
is
was up in its year.
I thought Second Son was very shiny and pretty to look at, but I did not enjoy playing it very much.
Yeah, I will agree. The combat got a little samey, but that's with a lot of those games, with Infamous and why am I thinking of the other one that's just like it now? Prototype. Thank you. Yeah. Very samey kind of gameplay. I enjoyed it, but I can understand it not making the top 10. I think Smash Brothers should fight for a top 10. Just like Sean says,
but
it's
I think the problem is we have too many games.
yeah.
We gotta, like,
I enjoyed Wolfenstein: The New Order. I have no problem taking it off the top 10 though.
no, Wolfenstein: The New Order absolutely paves the way for Doom later. Absolutely paves the way for the rest of that series coming back. I mean, I didn't really play. I mean, other than Halo and Gears, I didn't really play any shooters. I picked up that game and I played the whole damn thing. And the story is so freaking good in that game too. Like, BJ is such a badass, and like going back and killing Nazis and the way they do it, and it's a fun game. Like, I really enjoy that game, and you can go in as stealth if you want. You can go in and gun. I mean, obviously you got to go kill the commander first, but you can go in guns blaze if you want. The difficulty wasn't crap like the second game, so
Here's here's my argument against Smash Brothers. Is even when that game was released, Melee was still more popular and beloved. It wasn't until the Switch.
Well, that's because it's the Wii U was generally crapped on.
Yeah.
And we got to think about that. I mean,
it's the same reason why Bayonetta 2 is so low. Is because nobody but me played it.
I played it when it was on once it's on Switch.
Okay. Well, it needs to be higher.
Yeah, there's a few that need to get bumped up.
Okay,
I mean, if you want more than one of these games to get bumped up, I mean, honestly, I think Alien Isolation has to.
Alien Isolation is a 10 right now for sure.
Is it really? Is it going over Sunset Overdrive and over Divinity?
My problem with Divinity is like, it's such a great game. I agree. It's just.
I think Original Sin 2 does it better because it has character backstories. That's one good thing about it. Like, Original Sin 1, you pretty much just blank slates at the start.
That's true.
I like the backstories in 2. How you could be like, the opera singer, the singer who's like, has a crazy person living inside of her.
And it gave you kind of custom quest stuff. It was actually a lot like the first Dragon Age in this regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm okay with, man, it's weird because I argued against Sunset Overdrive, but I do.
No, I love Sunset Overdrive too. It's just my problem with it is
I just didn't like the combat flow in that game. Like,
that's why. But there are things to like about it that.
Like the sense of style is good, but yeah, having to jump around on awnings and grind rails like a jet grind radio game, it's like, all right.
Okay, I mean, it's probably fine.
Yeah, I don't know, because look at the rest of this list. I mean, you got Bayonetta 2, Shovel Knight is super a big deal and important. I mean, Wolf Among Us is...
And one argument for Shovel Knight is the way that they supported that game post-release is amazing. Like that DLC, the free DLC, I should say, because they didn't charge you for it, and it's fantastic. It's like almost better than the core game.
It's 5 games in one, basically.
It's an incredible. Not only is it like it's a great platformer, and it's also one of the first games to really successfully incorporate Dark Souls style mechanics, which became a thing. Now
and
you
it's
got
one of
Hollow
the
Knight.
It's the one that showed that Kickstarter is important.
Broken Age was really the first big Kickstarter success, but I think that Shovel Knight came out before Broken Age did. Like, they finished it beforehand, and it was really the first like super well reviewed one I can think of.
Well, I meant like FTL.
Oh, FTL is also
but I mean, like FTL got a lot of praise, right, critically, but I feel like Shovel Knight was like the big standard bearer for, like, Shovel Knight got into people's hands that necessarily don't always play a bunch of games.
You got ported everywhere. Heck, I own a Shovel Knight amiibo.
Yeah, I mean, Shovel Knight got
an amiibo for a Kickstarter game. I think it may be the only one.
No, they had the Dark Souls amiibo.
That's not.
Oh yeah. There is the Dark Souls amiibo. So, I mean, and talk about, like, one of the best licensed games ever in South Park Stick of Truth, which
is great.
Nobody thought it was going to be. Everybody probably is like, oh, it keeps getting delayed, keeps having problems. THQ goes under, and then it gets picked up by Ubisoft, and they have to delay it again, and then finally it comes out, and you're like, holy crap, I'm just like playing a South Park episode.
Yep, and it's the first good South Park game, right?
Nope.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You forget about the South Park kart racer.
Uh-huh.
No. Yeah, I know. And I think also the game that comes after it it's not as good as Stick of Truth. So.
No, it was that other South Park game was actually kind of bad, I thought.
Well, yeah. It's not Obsidian, so the writing took a...
Yeah. Well, not the writing, just the actual gameplay I thought was worse.
That too. I mean, to be fair, I guess it was the what are their names? I can't think of them. Parker and Stone. I mean, they were behind the writing of both in a big way, but I feel like you can tell the Obsidian touches in Stick of Truth, and I like the combat system a lot better.
Yeah, my problem was the fractured butthole is Ubisoft made it, and it felt just not as refined from like an RPG perspective. And I said, well, this is an RPG, so what happened?
Yeah, all the funny moments in that game. It's ridiculous. There's so many like ridiculous things in that game that you're like, I don't want to play this around anyone because somebody's going to look at this and go, what the hell is going on? Like, you know, certainly don't play it around your kids, you know. So
yeah, I mean, it's South Park. You know what to expect from South Park at this point.
Right.
It's in like season 500 and whatever.
Mario Kart 8 is an absolute, probably perhaps the best Mario Kart ever.
A delight.
Yeah, and it's like all the things they add into that game just absolutely made it for the better. The different weight classes that you had now, a lot of the tracks that they brought back, and a lot of the new ones are really good. It also was like one of the ones you really wanted to use that Wii U gamepad to play it on your gamepad as well, and not just on the TV. I think that's one of the games that I think really showed that off. Plus you could still use the Wii and the Wii Wheel and all that stuff too to play with other people, and just obviously the DLC came out like after, but they added that into Deluxe and made that a thing, and the giving you like better item selection as the first player, where you absolutely a lot of times you got just absolute shit, and you felt like you actually could dominate.
It's how they dole out items from those games, like always.
Yeah, so no, but they made it better in Mario Kart 8, so that's that was a plus, and yeah, I just absolutely love that game, and obviously the fact that when you talk about Switch games, it's still one of the highest selling, if not the highest. Selling, Smash beat it eventually, but it was for like the longest time the highest selling Switch game because it's such a great freaking Mario Kart game. You guys talked a little bit about Far Cry 4 before, about how it sort of matches 3. I think it's the closest to match 2 and 3 as far as giving you that Far Cry feel.
Yeah, it's the last great Far Cry game and the last Far Cry game I platinumed. So it definitely needs to be on this list. I don't know if it needs to be number 2.
It's weird. That's the last Far Cry game where you actually play a named character, or like a character with a story. And I don't know why.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, they figured that, I guess, create a character was better. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's all first person, so who cares?
I agree with you. But yeah, I
better than
really
calling
don't know
him-
where Ubisoft got that idea because they have named characters for the rest of their...
Well, it's better than in Far Cry 5, it's called the Deputy. In Far Cry New Dawn, where it's like you're the security chief.
Mark,
Like,
that is the least of Far Cry 5's problems. I don't know why you're
That's a
so
big
hung up. I don't know why you're so hung up on the silent protagonist thing when there's a million things in Far Cry 5 to complain about.
because it's a regression in the quality of the game.
Yeah, but again,
It's not something new they added that was bad. That I can understand. Like a lot of that crap in that game, they actively took a step back. That is why I'm hung up on it.
well, you could say that creating your own character is something they added. But regardless, we don't have to argue about Far Cry 5 right now. It's not going to go on any of these lists.
Yeah.
But I think Far Cry 4 was just a very polished version of Far Cry 3 with a good villain and in a cool environment and with really great shooting and really great outposts.
All right, Dark Souls 2. Why is it? What makes it
On here at all?
better than the first one?
Okay, so it's not better than Dark Souls, but it's different than the Dark Souls. They made a lot of little tweaks to the combat to get around the way that people were cheesing original Dark Souls, and they completely changed.
Isn't that the whole point of the game, though?
Well, I mean, I like cheesing those games, obviously, But you can cheese Dark Souls 2 in different ways. So it just kind of became all of the things they fixed. They kind of opened up other ways. It was an interesting refinement / change for Dark Souls in the combat system. And then there were a lot of other gameplay things that are slightly different. Like there's not really a contiguous world. It's more these kind of self-contained labyrinthine areas, which I actually really like. And I also, they did stuff like, if you farm an area enough, you can eventually empty it. Like once you kill an enemy 10 times, they will actually despawn, which I certainly did for a lot of them. Like I put, like 160 hours into that game maybe, and a big part of that was that like there are certain areas where just like I'm gonna play this area until everything in this area is dead. But of course they didn't give you the ability to like respawn everything if you want to at a harder difficulty. So it just kind of introduced a lot of new systems to Dark Souls that I thought made Dark Souls better. But of course it was, as a result, also a very divisive Dark Souls game where a lot of people who liked the first one didn't like this one nearly as much or had complaints about it. It became this thing where there's people who, whose favorite Dark Souls is Dark Souls 2, and I count myself among them. It is my favorite Dark Souls game. But then there's other people who strongly dislike it. I think the only strike against it, to me, is that they somewhat overpromised with things like the lighting system. There was a lot of stuff that was in previews that ended up being stripped out because they couldn't make it work.
Like the torches?
Yeah, like the torches stuff. And I don't think that would have really added much to this game anyway. I mean, it only seems like it's relevant in a couple of dungeons, or would have been relevant in a couple of dungeons. So I've never, some of the backlash against that game, I can't relate to that. So I don't know, maybe it needs to be a little bit lower, but I like it at 3. As I said, to me personally, it's my favorite Dark Souls to play. It's the one, and one reason why I talked in our 2019 Game of the Year about Code Vein, about one reason I really love Code Vein is because the dungeons remind me of the Dark Souls 2 dungeons.
I will only accept this game on this list if Dark Souls 3 is on the future list.
Well, see, I mean, I like Dark Souls 3, but Dark Souls 3, I mean, it's a really good Dark Souls, but it's not. It's more like Dark Souls 1 by way of Bloodborne, if that makes any sense.
Oh, totally. Crystal clear. They're all the same damn game.
No, they're not.
Bloodborne is also different in how it does it.
Bloodborne, you have a pistol instead of a shield. That's about it.
Yeah, but that
you
makes it all
also
about
have to be more
countering.
aggressive in Bloodborne than you do in Dark Souls.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, Bloodborne is the best Souls game, so
I agree too.
I'm not counting it. When I say Dark Souls 2 is my favorite, it's my favorite
low-hanging
trilogy.
fruit right there, though.
Again, you're insane. Those games are all fantastic.
Okay, hold on. I don't need to get into a jousting match about whether or not Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. Obviously, the Nemesis system is the thing that it sticks out about that game when you think about it. It's the thing that everybody lauded when the game was fresh.
I didn't. I thought it was kind of neat, but I just thought like the actual gameplay was good. Like most of the time, I just killed the guy, like the Nemesis, just kind of quickly and easily. Like
it was like a good Ubisoft game, but I really liked all the Nemesis stuff. It just added so much personality and depth to it. And I really felt it. I really felt the rivalries with those enemy commanders, especially once they, if they've killed you once or twice and they start leveling up and taunting you. It's really great. So that stuff worked for me really well. Actually, better than in the sequel. Like I didn't think Shadow of War.
The sequel sucked.
Shadow of War was bad.
Did it nearly? But I mean, just the Nemesis. You'd think the Nemesis system would be better, but they did all sorts of things to screw with it and make it not work.
Loot boxes and all that other crap.
Yeah, well, that was that's a layer of bullshit that.
The thing I like about Shadow of Mordor is it really is just a big open world. Like later on, you can get that other continent, but that is a huge open area for the first landmass. And Shadow of War, you had like 5 different types, like very small land masses. And it's like, what
they weren't that small. In total, that game is huge still, but.
Well, it felt like I was bumping up walls against every one of those like landmass, like especially that one castle one. I'm like, why is this place so limited, or just so sectioned off?
It surprises me that Shadow of Mordor hasn't been more influential in this regard, that more people haven't done it, because that's what everybody thought was going to happen when that game came out. Of like, we're going to see the Nemesis system everywhere, and I really haven't seen it very much.
It may not be something that's very easy to do, perhaps, or something.
Maybe it's just a remark. I mean, I just think that game is a remarkable achievement in game design. I mean, they came up with something that nobody had ever done before, and they pulled it off, and nobody has been able to replicate it or tried to replicate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how many times I played that game and cussed because I was in the middle of a really tough battle, and then a rival showed up in the middle of it. I'm like, not right now, weird orc the third. It's like, I don't want to mess with you right now. I'm over here messing with this giant guy. Like,
the names for some of the friggin' things are so weird too.
I will say I enjoyed the game. I'm still I have no problem with it being one. I don't know. It's not my one. I mean, I'm a huge Shovel Knight guy, but I already know this list is impossible. It's so diverse and different, and
yeah, this is almost like the 2019. Like, a lot of these could be Game of the Year. A lot of these could be moved down depending on who you talk. You know what your opinion is. It's like, yeah, it's such a weird. This was the first year of the PS4 and Xbox One as well. So
yeah, I don't see two games on this list that are similar.
That's a plus,
right? It's a great for the year. It's just for us now.
If I were cutting anything, I would cut Wolf Among Us, but I know that that's not going to fly.
No.
We got our 10. I think we have our 10.
Wolf Among Us is such a, like, for not being a super popular property, the way it tells its story is fantastic, and I love the main character, following him around through that entire series, and the like twist, the way it does some of the twists is great. Like, that whole world is interesting. The way it's because it's like it's fresh. It's not something that it's not like their interpretation of Batman or their interpretation of Game of Thrones. Like, this felt, even though they didn't create it themselves, it felt special. You know, like the way that they did their own Walking Dead kind of thing. I feel like this is the last time that they're able to really surprise you with how they did their thing. And this is the last one that, I mean, Tales from the Borderlands is a great, like, take on Borderlands characters or whatever. And I'll vouch for that when we get to that year, but I feel like Wolf Among Us is that last time where I feel like, oh, this is that thing that makes me want to play a Telltale game. This is that thing that makes me want to play those episodes and keep going through and all that. And there's a reason why people are still excited about Wolf Among Us 2, even though this is the second time they're redoing it. So, you know.
I think the last one we haven't talked about yet is Bayonetta 2, and that one to me is just a case of lightning striking twice.
Yeah, it's
like
Bayonetta, but improved in every way, pretty much.
Yeah, bigger, better, but yeah, just as awesome a story, just as visually impressive.
And and on the Nintendo system only, which hurt it because obviously not everybody owned the Wii U. So.
Yeah. Well, there's so many Wii U. I mean, like, I love Wonderful 101, and nobody played that.
It's just,
there's...
Look at all these games that they're now getting to put on Switch because nobody's played the Wii U.
Yeah, but that I don't think that game would ever... And it can't because it, like, relies so much on the touchpad. Though I guess you could do some of it on the Switch, but you'd have to significantly overhaul because you really need the second screen. Yeah, I don't think that would happen. But yeah, lots of great games trapped in the Wii U, unfortunately. Still. One of my favorite Bat games too, Devil's Third, which I thought was quite amusing.
Well, yeah, let's start figuring out this top 10 because what are we gonna agree that Shadow of Mordor is number 1?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I can't argue with it. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Are we all gonna agree that Far Cry 4 is number 2?
I feel it could move down.
Yeah, but you just want Dark Souls 2 to move up.
No, I wouldn't mind Bayonetta 2 at number 2, but
that's not going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen.
That's less likely going to happen.
Well, I
can move Bayonetta 2 up some, but I feel like I almost feel like it's either like between Mario Kart and Far Cry or something.
That'd be okay. I'd be okay with Mario Kart at number 2.
I'd say Far Cry because it's less hack than Mario Kart, so they've iterated better. It took them 8 tries to get to Mario Kart 8. Also, Mario Kart 64 is still better.
No.
Oh, come on.
Awful.
No, it's not.
I'm a huge Shovel Knight guy, so I wanted to go up. I don't know if I would argue it with Far Cry and Mario Kart, but Shovel Knight's my game of the year. As far as Far Cry or Mario Kart was definitely more popular. I liked Far Cry 4 more, but so it's tough.
Far Cry 4 was a huge game when it came out. It's okay. I think let's just leave Far Cry where it is.
That's okay. I'm fine with that. Let's leave the top 3 as it is. Oh, you're putting Mario. Okay. Well, okay. Mario.
Are we putting Mario Kart at 3?
Yeah, let's just put Mario Kart at 3.
All right.
Leave Dark Souls where it is.
All right. I'm okay with Dark Souls at 4 if we can move Shovel Knight and Bayonetta 2 up a little.
I'm in frame with that. Like I think Stick of Truth is a great game, a great licensed game, a great RPG for its time. But I'm not the biggest it's I think you need to.
So I don't know who has. I haven't played Wolf Among Us, but out of the people that have, which was better, South Park or Wolf Among Us?
I'd say Wolf Among Us.
I would also say Wolf Among Us.
Okay, so we'll put that up above it.
And I would put Wolfenstein above South Park as well because of.
I actually wouldn't say that. South Park it's a good RPG, but it's very basic in terms of actual gameplay mechanics. Once you unlock bleed weapons, the game becomes a cakewalk because everything is susceptible to bleed. So even bosses, you can bleed at the bosses, and it's this is kind of weird.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Wolfenstein above South Park. If you're saying it's very basic as an RPG.
And then we just have Alien Isolation 10 still, or?
Yeah, that's number 10 for sure.
Yeah,
boom,
I'm
we've
fine
got
with
our
that.
list.
Yeah.
There you go. Are we everybody fine with the way this looks right now?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Or you said boom.
Okay.
Jens has spoken.
Yes. Okay, so there it is. Middle of our Shadow of Mordor is what?
Hey guys, where is Assassin's Creed Unity?
No. I can't believe I had to have that game included in my purchase of a system. That's what bothered me. At least I got Black Flag for free with it, so whatever. Metal Gear Solid Mordor, number 1. Far Cry 4, number 2. Mario Kart 8, number 3. Dark Souls 2, number 4. Shovel Knight, number 5. Bayonetta 2, number 6. Wolf Among Us, number 7. Wolfenstein New Order, number 8. South Park Stick of Truth, 9. And Alien Isolation, number 10. And we had to cut some really good games, but that's what happens when you make these lists. So maybe some of them will live on when we talk about the historic reasons or influentials or whatever in that last podcast where we actually get to making the top 100. But all right, that's it for 2014. Whew. I don't know if it gets harder or easier when you get to the next year, but that's it. If you like what you heard, you can get us in contact with us through email, w2network@gmail.com. You can listen to us on pretty much any, podcast thing that's out there. If you like iHeartRadio or like Spotify or iTunes or Podcast Addict or whatever thing you use to listen to podcasts. We should be there, and you could hit subscribe so that, you know, you can keep getting more of these games of the decades, or, you know, when we do our normal podcasts, that it's usually just Mark and I, but, you know, hey, if Jens wants to be on or Randy wants to be on, they can certainly let us know. And we normally talk about news and what's going on and games we're reviewing or games we're playing or whatever, so always have something out there for you. And of course, we will continue on with 2015, so get ready for that in just a little bit. See you later, everybody.